Welcome to the Why People Buy podcast, a podcast about the motivations and buyer psychology in food and beverage for why people make the choices that they make and how brands can grow by caring about their customers. Today, we'll be talking with Andrea Schwenk, and I am host Seth Waite from Schaefer. So, Andrea, I'd love to have you just introduce yourself really quickly and talk about it from the perspective of a friend. If someone was to introduce you to me, what would they say?
This is a fun exercise. I would probably say this is Andrea Schwenk. She's the chief marketing officer for Egglife Foods. She's been in the food industry and beverage industry for more than 20 years and sat on a few different sides of the table across agencies and suppliers and retailers. And now in this role at Egglife, she's helping build a flour-free future with protein-packed foods that are made from eggs instead of flour. You might know their brand Egglife from some Egglife egg white wraps that you might find at your local grocery store. But they've also recently expanded into power pasta and ready-to-eat grab-and-go wraps.
That's cool. As you kind of connect then your own personal story in with the brand Egg Life, how did Egg Life get started? Like, what's that origin story like?
Yeah, Egglife was really born from a fairly simple but powerful idea. What if eggs could replace flour as the foundation of some of the favorite foods that people love? And our founder, Peggy Johns, was experiencing some personal health issues herself that necessitated her to think about eating differently. And so she had been encouraged by her doctor to really increase her protein intake and decrease her carbohydrate intake. She works for a very large egg company and she knows a lot about eggs. And one of the many things she knows about eggs is that they're naturally high in protein and low in carbs. And so she's a bit of a savant in the kitchen and she really got in there and started experimenting and saying, okay, if I'm going to live this way, from a long-term standpoint, I need some tools and some foods that I know that I'm going to enjoy eating, but that also meet these nutritional goals that I have. And so she ultimately created this better for you wrap that fit her lifestyle. And really, that's what was the spark that ultimately turned into Egg Life Foods today. And now we're reimagining lots of household staples, not only tortillas, but also pasta and snacks using protein from eggs instead of refined flour.
That's awesome. And when did the brand start?
So we started market testing in the Chicagoland area really in 2020 was our first full year in market.
Almost 5 years, basically. And
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome as part of the experience. And how did you get connected to the brand? Have you been part of it from the beginning, or did you come
Yeah.
in like,
Yeah, I started in January of 2020, right when we were market testing here in the Chicagoland area. And I had known our CEO, David Kroll, for a number of years just through the CPG community here in Chicago. And we crossed paths when he was at Miller Coors as the CMO and he was selling a lot of beer. I was at the time at Buffalo Wild Wings running the beverage business, buying a lot of beer. And when I left Buffalo Wild Wings and kind of reflected on the next chapter in my career and what I wanted to do next, David and I, reconnected and he made the really intentional shift to go into the better for you space and had joined Egg Life and had asked if I would come and kind of build out an innovation process and pipeline for the company as they were just getting started. And I really immediately fell in love with the product and the people and the passion behind the brand and knew that, doing something in the better for you space was something that was very interesting to me. Spent the first part of my career in alcohol and also selling a lot of fried food, which was
yeah,
fun, but maybe not so great for my own waistline. And ultimately, as I thought about the legacy that I want to leave on the food industry, kind of going to this better for you space was really appealing to me. And so I was drawn to this, challenge of making food kind of what we are now calling like sneaky healthy, food that's good for you, but also doesn't compromise on taste.
yeah,
And I have not looked back, one day since joining Egg Life. So
that's awesome. Yeah, and I love that idea of not feeling like you have to convince, your kids or yourself, like, well, this is good for you, so deal with the taste, the flavor, the texture, all these other things, and instead just substitute this right into your daily life is a big part of that.
Totally. It's seamless.
Yeah. So, what does your day to day look like as part of your role?
I guess no day is the same. I'll tell you that. I wear a lot of different hats in terms of managing all of our consumer facing marketing communication, but also innovation and new product development. So, looking at trends in the marketplace and what's next and what makes sense for Egg Life, but also spending a lot of time just listening to our consumers and understanding what's working and what's not. Where is there opportunity for product optimization or messaging optimization? And just working a lot cross-functionally with our teams across operations and R&D and sales. We've scaled the business exceptionally fast. And so I feel like in some ways I've worked for 5 different companies over the past
Yeah.
5 years just because our business is evolving so rapidly. So thinking about even, how are we resourcing the company, both internally, but then also with the partners that we work with as well.
Yeah. And I love that. I always feel like every time you kind of double revenue, it's a brand new company. Headcount changes, everybody's job titles and roles change. And even if you have the same job title, it's like fundamentally new day to day. So
100%. Yeah.
that's really awesome. And this idea of marketing and innovation coming together, was this something that you kind of came into the role saying, I really want to make this happen? Was it from the brand and from the leadership team coming in and saying, hey, we want you to have both of these kind of key areas? How did that evolve? Because I don't see that very often.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I came in, kind of with the remit to consult from an innovation standpoint. And then about 6 months in, our CEO had asked if I would take over the marketing department. And it's a really nice intersection. Like I get to work so closely with R&D from a product development standpoint and really share kind of what we're hearing and from our consumers in terms of what they want and what matters to them. And it really helps shape our product offering ultimately. So it's been really nice.
And obviously the initial brand opportunity came from a really specific use case. I mean, day one, right? It's like use case of one. And how do I solve this problem for myself? As you have stuck with the brand and helped develop and grow it and looked at all this data and research, what other problems are you seeing get solved by Egg Life? Like, how has that evolved as you've looked at the jobs to be done
Hmm.
across the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what the problem Peggy was solving initially was this intersection of nutrition and taste, kind of like how do I create something that meets my nutritional goals, but also tastes great. I think the other problem that we're solving that I didn't even really appreciate we were solving until I got really into the role was this idea of like versatility and this. Like, I think of Egg Life a lot as kind of like a Swiss Army knife. And I think it's once our consumers unlock the magic of the versatility that really makes them brand fans. And so we serve the role with our wraps product of a tortilla. It's a thing that you put stuff in, but it's also made of protein. So it's this tortilla experience, but a protein occasion. And it works across both hot and cold applications and sweet and savory applications. And so once a consumer figures out, whoa, I can make lasagna with this product, I can put peanut butter and banana on it on egg whites and it tastes good. And all of a sudden now I have this sweet afternoon snack that is good for me. It's a really an aha moment. And so I think solving versatility with one product is also a really unique thing that is unique to Egg Life that I didn't even appreciate that that was a problem for solving until I really got into it.
Yeah, I would imagine any kind of in-home usage testing is showing you some pretty wild use cases. And to your
Totally.
point,
Yeah, we had people make layer cakes with Egg Life.
wow,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I
Yeah.
would,
I would have never dreamed that.
people are creative. That's really cool. And then and you've started with the wraps, and it sounds like you have seen all kinds of use cases. What led to pasta? How did you come up with that as a concept to say, hey, this is our next frontier?
Yeah. So similar to, I see what consumers are saying about our existing products, watching how they're using them, in application is also something that I keep a pulse on. I love getting in the underbelly of the internet and reading some good Reddit threads or, just seeing what consumers are saying about the product in the safety of like where they just think they're having a conversation with themselves or their close friends on Reddit. The consumers were cutting up our wraps and they were making pasta with them. And there was something really interesting there from a low carb, high protein pasta alternative standpoint. And so what Peggy created with the wraps, and we have IP around how we make those and how we replace wheat flour with eggs, that technology is translatable into other product categories. And so it was always on our horizon to go into other product categories. And, we had talked about pasta being a potential. And when we saw consumers cutting up our wraps and doing that with them already, it felt like a very logical next, category to go into, and that we could do it in a similarly disruptive way that we have with wraps, and that we have a whole bunch of flavor varieties, within our Egglife Power Pasta. And flavor doesn't really exist within the pasta category today. It does like a little bit, but not in a major way. And it was honestly kind of similar with the tortilla category when Egglife entered. You could find some flavored tortillas, but it wasn't super prominent even 5 years ago. And so egg whites are a great carrier for flavor, where flour tends to mask flavor. Like if you have a spinach tortilla, it's green, but it doesn't really taste like spinach.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have an egg life flavored wrap, it really tastes like that flavor. And it's the same thing with our power pasta. The flavor really comes through the egg white carrier.
Yeah. Where historically you had plain tortillas, green spinach tortillas, and red tomato. And it was
Yep,
like, this is it. And to your point, there
totally.
was no difference
Yeah,
other than
the color.
thanks for dyeing the tortilla
Yeah.
as part of the
I feel
process.
slightly healthy saying I'm eating a spinach wrap, but the reality is, like, nutritionally, it's the same. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just green.
Yeah.
You could use the same thing for St. Patrick's Day, and it would have been no different as part of the process. So, well, so you talked about Reddit and just, one of lots of places
Yeah.
where you get a chance to really see what are people talking about and how they're using it. And I think the pasta example's a phenomenal one, right? Like they're literally cutting wraps and turning it into pasta, which is allowing you as a team then to kind of dive in. How else are you staying close to the customer
Yeah.
as part of your role?
Yeah. I mean, I read a lot of comments on social. Especially for, have some sort of big announcement or something. I always want to see, what consumers are saying. But I also am copied on every single consumer complaint that we get
Wow.
because I want to know what's not working. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of great insight there in terms of understanding, what pain points might we be able to solve. So really doing a lot of social listening, and then talking to consumers in person too, whether it's I love meeting people at trade shows, at sampling events, locally here in Chicago or elsewhere. Or even was when I'm at the grocery store and I see somebody, either pick up a pack of Egg Life and put it back. That's fascinating. I love to ask questions if they're open, or if they happen to have Egg Life in their cart, taking a look at what else is in their cart. You can just gain a lot of insights just by listening to consumers, what they're saying.
Yeah. You just have to do it carefully enough that you don't look like a weirdo
Exactly.
in the grocery store as you're
Exactly.
like, can you tell me why you looked at the back of that and then put it back? Yeah.
Totally. But you know what? A free product coupon usually will
Yes.
make somebody more than willing to tell you a few things.
Yeah. That's great. No, that's interesting. And as a brand, so if that's kind of what you're doing in your role as a organization, how do you talk about the customer experience and kind of this customer research insights and buyer psychology space?
Yeah. We talk a lot just cross functionally. Like we have a very open conversation with our sales team around, what are your buyers saying? What are they interested in? What are some of the consumer trends that they're trying to react to? How can Egg Life be a thought leader in that space? I mean, right now, it's never been a more exciting time to be a brand like Egg Life made out of protein. There is a lot of conversation going around in the
Yeah.
protein space.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting when Egg Life as a brand can be a thought leader to our retail partners as such a small brand. That's really interesting to me, but there's just so much relevancy and opportunity for us to provide thought leadership to our retail partners. And yeah, I mean, we meet regularly to go through consumer inquiries and complaints and understand like what are consumers saying, what do we need to solve for, working well and what's not, so that we continue to try to stay ahead of the curve and try to spend our limited resources in the way that's going to be the most effective in terms of continuing to drive the business forward.
That's great. Yeah. And as you've had all these conversations, have you guys been surprised at all? Like, it sounds like the pasta was a little bit of like a, hey, this is
Yeah.
interesting. But do you guys ever have moments where you're like, this is totally different than what we expected?
Yeah. I think I think one thing that was surprising to me that I wouldn't have expected before I joined Egglife was how emotionally connected our consumers are to our product. I didn't expect that, to be honest, like within a CPG brand. And I think when I unpack it, it's interesting because consumers will they write love letters to us and they tell us, how Egglife helped them rediscover foods that they felt like they had given up or were off limits. And so there is this sense of renewed joy and freedom that Egglife has provided to them. And I didn't expect that. It's been humbling and really gratifying to hear from consumers. Like the things we hear most are Egglife has been a game changer and I'm obsessed with your wraps. I just didn't expect a food product to have that like emotional resonance and connection with consumers. And so that has certainly been surprising. Yeah. And then I would just say, like, some of the applications we see in terms of, what people do with our products. I mentioned the layer cake. I remember one Reddit thread I read, someone was rolling up our sweet cinnamon wrap and dipping in an almond milk. I mean, that sounds weird, but like to each his
Yeah,
own. So,
probably
um,
delicious. Yeah.
yeah, probably delicious. I probably shouldn't knock it until I've tried it, but yeah.
Well, that's great. And I would imagine, as you're going through all that, how has your customer then in this process, if they're trying lots of things, right? They're feeling the impact, they're talking about this, and it makes sense considering that for lots of people, all of a sudden they have a newfound freedom in food. Has your customer changed though, as you think about segments and personas and really like who you focused on the very beginning in Chicagoland area? How has your customer shifted over time, or has it?
Yeah, I would say it's changed somewhat. I mean, initially, we saw a lot of adoption within the keto community in particular. So, consumers that were really focused on net carb consumption. And it was just this like carb math game that they were playing. And I mean, Egg Life, we don't even play the net carb game. We just have very, very low carbohydrates in general. You don't have to subtract fiber. Like it is what it is. And so we saw a lot of relevancy within those low carb communities and keto. And over time, as we've expanded household penetration and just grown our overall audience, I think, and combined with the reality of what's going on in the marketplace today around protein, the pendulum has swung more from consumers really looking for low carb options to consumers looking for high protein options. And luckily, Egg Life is both of those things. And part of the magic is the yes and it's the protein in combination with the lack of carbohydrates. But I would say that that's really been part of the shift in why consumers buy Egg Life. And it's influenced our messaging strategy as well. It's interesting because I think when I think about the consumer psychology around like how people eat, I think often too, like we've lived through these different like diet eras, right? Like it was fat is the enemy, everything's low fat
Yeah.
to, oh, it's all about like just managing caloric intake and 100-calorie packs. And then it was, oh, carbs are the enemy and we're all eating low carb and it's all about low carb, high fat. And a lot of those diets were all about restriction. And in general, I don't think consumers don't love to be told no or you can't
Yeah.
have something. It's like, as soon as you tell me I can't have something, it's like, give me more. Like, all I
Yeah.
think about is that I can't have that. And I think it's part of why this whole protein renaissance has happened is because it's the one macronutrient that hasn't been vilified. And
Totally.
like more is better. And so as Americans, we live from this like place of abundance and like, I want more, more, more. And it's like, oh, you're telling me protein is good and more is better. I'll sign up for that. Like, that's one thing that I can get behind. And so I think that that's why there's been such I would say like a quick adoption by all sorts of different people to say like, yes, protein is good. I want more of it. Where do I, where do I get it?
Yeah.
How do I squeeze it in?
I think that's a great insight because, to your point, most food trends have been built around diets, which are restrictive. And you're starting to see GLP-1s, they're having a major impact. Like there's all these other things happening at the exact same time. And to your point, being able to say yes is pretty powerful. And I'll be honest, every once in a while, I'm like, maybe there's too many brands that are protein focused. When I was at a food show recently, and it was like there's protein water and there was protein cotton candy, and like I was just like, well, cotton candy might be a little bit much. So how do you have to ever deal with that kind of persona or perspective where people are like, I don't know if I need all this protein or those kind of things?
It's something that I think about a lot. Like I'm waiting for someone to start marketing like protein air. Like you can literally put protein in anything. And I agree. I think there are certain products, brands, and categories where it makes sense. And then there are others that you're like, does this really make sense? I don't know. Is there really a consumer need for this? I'm not sure. But I think right now where consumers are is that many of them have specific quantity goals. So, like, if you follow popular fitness influencers, they'll create some sort of, calculation around you need, 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight or whatever it is, which is a lot. And especially for women, I find it's really hard for them to achieve that without supplementation. And so, really understanding like where that protein is coming from is starting to become part of the conversation. And I think a there is a lack of understanding that all protein is not created equal. Where that protein comes from, the type of protein that it is, how it's, how complete of a source of protein is it? How does it get metabolized in your body? All of that is, I would say, like newer thinking or newer, it's not newer thinking, but consumers don't yet understand that. And so I think where the protein landscape is going to shift is from a conversation around quantity to a conversation around quality and source of protein. And then also, like we talk about like this idea of protein density. So when, how much protein per calorie is there in that food, especially for consumers that are on GLP-1 medications and are eating less and are looking to consume more protein to maintain, muscle mass as they're on a weight loss journey, the density and the amount of protein in the food that they're eating when they're eating less becomes increasingly more important. So I think that that's how the
Yep.
narrative is going to inevitably shift over the next couple of years.
Yeah, your calories have to do more work for you.
Exactly. We say like more bang for your bite. Like you're eating fewer bites. So how do you get more out of those?
Absolutely. As you're seeing all these things and recognizing opportunities and understanding how the consumer's shifting, how does that translate into your marketing as a brand, right? Because that I think is sometimes the hard part. Number one, am I seeing it? Sounds like you guys are leading, not
Yeah.
just seeing. But then how does that turn into everyday ads, campaigns, and whatever else you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a pretty tough challenge, I would say, over the past 5 years. We were building a new brand, a new product category. We have really inconsistent placement at retail because we are true white space innovation. So within
Like
our
where can we
wraps,
put you?
yeah, we're everywhere, right? You might find us in shredded cheese, you might find us in eggs, you might find us next to the tofu, you might find us in a refrigerated bread wall. Like, so just the basic blocking and tackling has been really important for Egg Life to date. I think that will change a bit more now that we're in pasta, and Egg Life Power Pasta is in the refrigerated pasta set. So there is for sure a more distinct, dedicated, and consistent placement strategy around that, which I'm really excited about. I think that that's going to create an opportunity to just raise awareness of brand Egg Life in totality. And I think the rising tide will raise all ships there. But it's been like, how do we balance the functional messaging communication with continuing to create emotional resonance, with consumers? And so we launched a new creative campaign this year called Sneaky Healthy. And it really is all about how Egg Life is better for you option that doesn't sacrifice on taste. And it's this seamless thing that you can plug into your lifestyle. And we're not asking you to do a whole bunch of work. And so I'm excited to be able to continue that campaign next year and continue to build on that to hopefully create an even more emotional connection while still bringing along the functional attributes of the product, because like nutrition is the reason why people are choosing Egg Life.
Yes.
And so we don't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nutrition without the loss of flavor.
Right. Yeah. It often feels like you're sacrificing something.
Yeah. Yeah. And how's the campaign going? Like, what are you hearing back as people are reacting and responding?
Yeah, it's early days, but so far so good. We went through a pretty big packaging rehaul alongside with this new campaign launch, and so It's been really nice to see. We typically would see more seasonality in the back half of the year, and we're not seeing that to the same degree. So I would say early indications are that the campaign and the new Viz ID and packaging are working for us.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And how, if someone's looking for your product, where can they find you today?
Yeah. So we're in most major retailers across the country. You can find us at Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, Kroger. Instacart is a great opportunity if you don't know where what retailers near you. But also we have a product locator on our website, so you can see, type in your zip code, and you can find all the Egg Life products near you.
That's great. Last question for you. As you think about the space that you're in, right? Food and beverage, you're got a lot of experience, not just at Egg Life. If someone was trying to learn, how do I stay connected to customers and translate that into our business, our marketing, those kind of things, what's one of your number one tips, processes, ideas, philosophies, things that ground you that you always come back to?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. I would say, number 1, listen. I would say listen with curiosity, with humility, with empathy. Consumers are gonna tell you what's working and what's not, and it's not our job as brand stewards to defend the brand. It's to understand and to respond, and sometimes that response might be like, "Here's why we're not doing that," but to understand and respond, I think, is how you earn trust with consumers. And then I think the second piece would be consistency. I think often we're looking to chase what's next, and we're bored with our own stuff before consumers even have a remote understanding of what you're trying to say to them. And so I think if you're bored with the messaging, it might mean that it's working. And so, like, don't walk away too quickly and chase what's next, especially in terms of like campaigns and ideas. Like, stick with it, would be the other.
Yeah, very wise. Because I think marketers, brand managers, right? There's a shiny component too. Let's repackage. Let's do the new campaign. Let's do all these things because that's interesting for
Right.
me. And to your point, I think especially when you're creating a category and driving new innovation, people just need a lot of exposure, more exposure than I think we assume. So,
Yeah, and you gotta be able to tackle, like, the basic blocking and tackling, and do the basics right.
and that takes a lot of time.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, egg life with us as well. Any last words or things you'd like to share before we close?
No, I think we covered everything.
Good. So, thank you so much for joining us. And
For having me.
yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Seth. Take care.